You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katie.
Welcome back! We are normal again.
Yeah, we're going to be professionals this time. Really make it up for last week.
And we're also normal in that we are having audio problems.
No, we're not. They're fixed now. I mean,
allegedly. We have
they're fixed for this recording.
I was going to say, we're going to have to remember for you to check on it at some point.
Yeah.
So that we don't get an hour in and find out that it stopped recording, 7 minutes in. Okay. Happy live show day when this comes out. This is coming out the day that we are having our live show.
That's right.
Which is 6 days from now.
Not nervous.
Yep. Katie texted me last night and was like, holy shit, I just realized our live show was in a week. And what did you say? You said, like, are we ready? And I was like, oh, well, that's a subjective question. Kind of.
That's a very good question.
We are in the process of being ready.
Not ready.
We're not ready. Okay, so the promised episode that I actually emailed it to myself again today after I texted you because I was
and you've got the physical copy somewhere.
So there's 2 emails in our inbox plus a physical copy in the living room. Should an act of God happen right now. So I'm titling this episode not to add to anyone's anxiety, but I've titled this episode New Fears Unlocked.
Nice.
And it came from a Wikipedia listacle about the most unusual deaths. And so I specifically went through and I picked out ones that are more or less freak accidents, but ones that could happen to any of us.
Yeah. So as someone who was deeply affected by Final Destination.
Oh gosh.
1 and 2.
Uh-huh.
Can if you start one, can I just say pass? Skip it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, do you have any specific ones that you don't want, and I can tell you?
No, I'm sure I can handle it. It's just, I still vividly remember the first time we watched Final Destination. I was watching it with my dad. Mm-hmm. And I think this was at the same time that he got the projector from work. Okay. So this is when projectors were kind of still a new, fun, exciting technology.
Yeah.
So we hung a sheet up in our study and we would watch movies, a lot of nights. And, so we were sitting there eating dinner, watching this movie, and it's halfway through, so nowhere near any kind of resolution. Uh-huh. And my dad's like, all right, dinner was over, and he's like, all right, time to go get your shower and get ready for bed, and then you come back and we can finish. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? It's like, no. Because I don't know how old I was, 12 or something, 13. I mean, old enough to watch it.
Yeah.
Probably barely, but old enough to watch it. But also still young enough that obviously he's controlling my life.
Yes.
And I'm like, I was so freaked out. That was one of the, fastest showers I'd ever taken. I vividly remember being terrified. What if I slip and almost fall, but don't? And then I've messed up and then death has to come for me in this horrible, awful way.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I think you have to have a premonition of your death and then avoid it because of the premonition in order for death to come after you in that way, right?
In 2, I saw the first 2, and both it was one person had the premonition. And so, the people who were on the airplane and someone was like, oh.
It's going to crash.
We got to get off. A handful of people got off with that person.
Right.
But
So it would have
They
to be...
didn't have a premonition of their own death. It was they escaped. Like, they were supposed to be on that plane. They were supposed to die.
But they didn't because of someone else. So, like...
Someone else had the premonition.
Yeah. What I'm saying is your dad would have had to rush into the bathroom and be like, Katie, I just saw you slip and fall and die in here. You have to get out. That would have been... And then death would come for you.
Yeah. Or... I mean, not necessarily, I don't think. Because, again... I don't know.
The rules of that universe are confusing. I will tell you that I purposefully did not include any children.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because some of them were awful. Jeez.
Well, I mean, the episode before last with the Tylenol, I mean, that talk about new fear, like just giving your kid medicine.
Yeah.
And dead. Like,
I almost commented on... I have a bad habit right now of reading comments on articles and then wanting to comment. And usually I don't, but sometimes I do. And this one was... I don't even know what it was about, but someone commented on, like, oh, imagine how... Think of how much, like, waste we've created, or has been created by all of the, like, safety, tamper-proof things that they had to put in place because of the Tylenol murders. And I almost commented to be like, yes, but
think of all the lives they've saved.
Yeah, like, think about how you don't have to be scared to take over-the-counter pain medication that I take like candy sometimes. Like, I've got expired ibuprofen in my purse that I take.
Again, maybe if a whole bunch of people die, we wouldn't have any kind of like overpopulating and overcrowding problems.
Yeah, and that's for the Earth to
all the other
figure out, though. She's got to come up with
another plague like the one we had 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
moving right along.
Okay, these are in chronological order. I also have listed here. Okay, I don't know if I said this on the last one, but I definitely told you we can stop at any point, meaning if we are going crazy long, we can just stop. I think I added another one. So there's like 15 to 16 here. And some of them didn't have a lot of information that I could find. Some of them did. So anyways, here we go. We're starting in 455 BC. 455 BC.
Wow. Okay.
A guy whose name I did not look up how to pronounce. Aeschylus is what we're going to go with. He is a Greek playwright, the father of tragedy. Anyone? Okay. So according to Pliny the Elder, our buddy Aeschylus was spending a lot of time outdoors because an oracle had foretold that his death would be caused by, quote, the fall of a house, which is so vague. That could mean anything.
Well, there's the fall of the House of Usher.
Right? And, like, that's what I would think is, like, oh, my death will come about because some great house is going to, you know, crumble and, you know, a lot of people die when that happens.
By house, you don't think a literal house. I mean, you think, definitely, possibly, well, in my case with my 120-year-old house that's crooked and likes to sway in the strong winds, could definitely literally be the fall of the house. Yes. I have definitely thought of that. But then there's also, like, the house is in, like, a family.
Yes. He was taking it literally, I think.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
So, allegedly, Aeschylus was killed when an eagle was flying overhead and mistook his bald head for a rock and dropped a tortoise on him. And
okay, well, I guess a tortoise's shell is his house.
Both Aeschylus and the tortoise died. However, the eagle presumably got its treat because the tortoise shell broke. And so I call that death by tortoise, which I have a little title for each of these.
All right.
But I don't want to ruin the surprise. So I'll announce the title at the end. Okay. After 455, there wasn't all that there. I skipped a lot. We're now in 1902.
Okay.
So we just skip right on up.
You hit the fast forward button.
We fast forwarded a little bit. And now we are in Morristown, Ohio, with a young man named Stanton Walker, who is 20. So he was at an amateur baseball game with some friends, Leroy Wilson and Frank Hyde.
Leroy Jenkins.
Jerk also always says that. So Frank was keeping score, and Stanton, I believe, is sitting like in between the two. So Frank is keeping score because that's what you do, I guess, when you're watching an amateur baseball game. And he asked,
or a lot of baseball games, it's not just keeping score, it's also, tracking like RBIs and stats and whatnot.
That sounds so boring to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, like, if I'm at the game and I'm sitting with someone who's like really into it and knows and like is explaining it, because that has been the case for me. I really enjoyed it, and I remembered those things for the next couple of times, and then I didn't go to baseball for a little while, and so I forgot. But
yeah, I don't find baseball interesting at all. Also, I now have a reason.
It's fun to be at the games, though.
Is it? Was it fun for Stanton this day?
Probably not, based on the whole theme of this episode. And also, I've also, when Walker and I were at the last baseball game we went to, and watched a pop fly, I was like, that fence is not high enough. That could easily come straight back down on us. And it's not at all like foreboding that the baseball game is literally right next to a cemetery and across the street from another cemetery.
Yeah, it is. I just remembered where it was that you were telling me about.
2 out of the 4 sides of this baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Cemeteries.
The first baseball game I ever went to, I did not realize that the balls could like come at you. And the people, they were like, "Oh yeah, that's why you bring a glove." I was like, "What if A, you don't have a glove, and B, you can't catch worth shit?" So like,
you can at least duck and cover your head.
Did
Stanton fail to do that?
Well, so Frank is keeping score. He asks Leroy on the other end of their little line for a knife so that he could sharpen his pencil because it's 1902. So Leroy passes an open penknife to Stanton to hand to Frank, and at that exact moment, a foul ball hit Stanton in the hand that was holding the knife, which drove the knife into his chest. And he bled to death within minutes. Right?
What?
Right. And let me tell you, to me, I have those intrusive thoughts that are like, oh, I'm carrying this wine glass. What if I trip and fall and the wine glass breaks and goes into my neck and I die?
Oh, I have that. What if I'm like walking down the stairs and slip and fall and break my neck, and if I don't die, I'm paralyzed and I can't reach the phone, and what if I'm home alone, or what if I'm home with Walker and like he doesn't know how to do things to help me yet, and
yeah, I wish I could tell you that this was the only instance of like this kind of something kind of knocks you and you accidentally stab yourself,
but like it takes a good bit of force though to stab yourself in the chest.
And I'm more surprised.
There's a whole lot of stuff there.
Yeah, well,
like,
I mean, presumably he stabbed himself in the heart.
But still, there's a rib cage there, and like
right through the rib, like in between them.
Yeah, but again, like you gotta like, there's not a lot of space between them. Like you gotta like be aiming, and I mean,
I'm more surprised.
There's also in between the ribs. So like, I mean, you've seen on doctor shows when they're inserting a chest tube or whatever, they gotta like force it in there.
And I'm more surprised that it didn't, like, first of all, it feels like a weird way to be holding. I can't imagine how he was holding the knife. But I would think that like if a ball was coming, it would be like a reflex to kind of like throw your hand up to like protect yourself from the ball and then maybe like accidentally get your eye or something with the knife.
Or just, really slash yourself.
Yeah.
But stabbing.
Yeah. It was a freak accident for sure. And that is called death by baseball. And that was one of like maybe 3 or 4 different entries. The other ones were like someone got hit in the head with a baseball and later died. But baseball is dangerous. So watch out. 2 years later, 1904, the early 1900s are a dangerous time, by the way. We have Melissa M. Tiemann. She was 50 in 1904. And according to a San Francisco newspaper, on July 7th, she, quote, either fell off a streetcar on which she had been riding or stepped off before it had stopped and fell violently to the ground. She hit the back of her head on the curb or the ground or whatever.
Was she wearing a hat pin?
She had an aluminum comb in her hair, and the teeth of the aluminum comb were driven into the back of her head, and it killed her instantly.
I have recently seen like a surge of like TikTok videos and other things, like just posts about, those hair claw clips, like what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
About basically like it's a lot of medical professionals being like, when I get into the car when I'm wearing my hair clip and before they buckle up or do anything, immediately tear that bad boy out and throw it into the seat. Because there have been apparently a lot of cases of women who have been wearing that hair clip getting in car accidents. And even though they're plastic, the plastic piece is being driven into their skull.
I was going to say, because there's metal ones too.
Like those are obviously worse, but even the plastic ones can still,
gosh.
I don't know if they'll actually drive through your skull, but they'll definitely do some damage. Yeah. And even if it doesn't go through your skull, like it can lead to neck injuries too, because of the way that it's.
I think about that too, like when I'm in the car, because I hate, like even if I'm just having like a ponytail in, if you can't comfortably lean your head back against that headrest, it bothers me.
And so I figure with my little guy that's up here, I'm like, I'll get in every time I'm wearing one. And I like put my head back against the headrest and then I tilt it up a little bit. And if I can't feel the headrest with my clip, then I'm like, okay, I'm safe.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I just cut all my hair off and I can't get it into a clip anymore.
Because I used to, when my hair was long, I would do the flip and it would be in the back. Yeah. So, same with me cutting all my hair off.
Oh my gosh. But can we talk about how
that's
liberating cutting your hair off is? I am
just makes you feel so fresh.
And no lie, so low maintenance. Like my hair is not naturally like nice and textured like yours.
Nice and textured.
Listen, well, someone complimented mine today, and she's like, "Oh, well, you have a little bit of body to it." I was like, "Girl, I did this with a straightener this morning. Like I made it have this shape." But she saw me yesterday and then saw me today. I was like, "Oh, did you cut your hair?" And I was like, "Yeah, like a week or 2 ago. You saw me yesterday with it." I was like, yesterday it kind of looked a hot mess express, but it's my go-to now where I don't have time in the morning. I'll just do like a little half up thing. And because it's so short, who cares what the extra like 6 inches of hair looks like that's hanging down? Not me, not anyone else. Have I washed my hair in a week? No, I have not. Was that my goal with cutting my hair? Yes, it was. Not using hot tools on it and not washing it as much. Thank you, Morgan, for cutting my hair in your kitchen. Highly recommend, by the way, my life tip or life hack. If you want to cut your hair very short, that's not for you because you already did it. But you're nervous. Have a friend who maybe went to cosmetology school, not just anyone, cut it for you while you're not looking in a mirror. And just tell them the length you want and let them do it, because then you can't do anything about it until you go into their bathroom and go, I look like Princess Diana. Not right now, but I did that day when I had it short.
All right, too many tangents.
Okay. Death by comb. That was Melissa. 1909. 5 years later. Oh, this is... I said no kids. This is the youngest that we're going to go. He's a teenager.
I'll allow it.
Okay. And this is just so weird. Okay, so his name is George Spencer Millay. And he was a teenager working at the Department of Applications in Madison Square. A quote about him was, his manners were good and his fair hair and fair complexion made him the pet of all the girl stenographers. I saw a picture of him.
Sounds like Walker.
It does, yes. I mean, he was just like a blonde, cute little... He was
sweet, polite little blonde boy.
Yeah, and he's 14 when he's working there. So, like, as far as I can tell, it was very much like all of the female stenographers were like...
Oh, he's so cute. He's
adorable.
So precious.
Yeah, it wasn't like a creepy thing.
No, I would never even anticipate or wouldn't go there.
Well,
when you say the pet, I'm like, yeah, no, it's all these women fawning over how adorable and precious and sweet he is.
Yes.
And such a, oh, what a sweet young man.
Yes. Well, the reason I had to say that, February 15th of 1909 was his 15th birthday. And on that day, several of the girl stenographers, I don't like that they're called that, but that's what they were called in this article. Several of his women coworkers apparently told him that at the end of the day, they were going to kiss him, 1 kiss for each year of his age. So 15 kisses at the end of the day. And so at 4:30, the bell rings. I don't know what signaled the end of the workday in 1909. And a bunch of...
The steam whistle.
The steam whistle. There you go. A bunch of these... I'm going to say women because the one that got interviewed was a 23-year-old named Gertrude Robbins. So a bunch of these young women convene on young George, and I'm sure they were like, "It's time for your birthday kisses!" Like,
and he was probably both excited and nervous and embarrassed, and like, I don't really want this. But okay.
Yes. So he's like is trying to kind of like get away and squirming and whatever.
And they're probably also saying it like to tease him and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure. So while he's doing that, in the scuffle, he falls. And he falls forward. He had a 6-inch metal ink eraser in his breast pocket.
No idea what that is. So
it is essentially a small, sharp object. And when he fell forward, the sharp end went into his heart. And he died on the way to the hospital. And for whatever reason, so he is buried in the Woodlawn Cemetery, which, call back to the, I'm pretty sure this is correct. That's the cemetery where the ransom money was exchanged for the Lindbergh kidnapping. So everyone take a drink because I referenced another episode. So he's buried in the Woodlawn Cemetery, and his gravestone, for whatever reason, says, "Lost life by stab in falling on ink eraser, evading 6 young women trying to give him birthday kisses in the Office Metropolitan Life Building."
That's way too much information for a tombstone.
Who told the tombstone person you need to summarize his manner of death with 4 separate details?
Also, engraving on stone was expensive back in the day.
Oh. That's just too many words.
you were paying by the letter. I mean, I think you still do.
Probably.
It's expensive.
You can just say, "Beloved son."
I mean, maybe the parents were like really trying to drive the guilt home that like these, 6 women inadvertently murdered their child, which, I mean, I don't actually see it that way.
No.
I see it definitely as a horrible accident, but if I was one of those women, I would 100%
yeah.
I wouldn't go a day without thinking about that. I would have to
No.
quit that job,
Well,
not work there,
Even
not
just witnessing
move.
something like that would be like traumatic enough that you would probably think about it every day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's called PTSD.
So that was death by
Kisses.
death by kisses.
Or death by eraser, but I think the name of like even the newspaper article was like death by kisses. All right, so we're going to jump ahead to 1924. And this is Thornton Jones. So he's a lawyer of some kind. How old is he? I don't know. There was the shortest little newspaper article on him. So he's from Wales. And he was taking a nap, as normal people do. Connor.
I can't nap.
Ugh. At least you don't think it's weird that other people nap. Connor thinks that Connor's my brother-in-law. Thinks that I'm napping every day and also every time like he calls Jarek or something.
It's not your fault he always calls during your nap time.
Exactly. And also I nap rarely, but I nap when I need to, which was yesterday. I was very tired.
I feel like you say rarely, but I mean that might be rare to your standards, but as someone who does not nap, and most people I know also don't nap,
Yeah.
the frequency at which you nap is...
I would say I nap like maybe a couple times a month.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's not a lot. Especially like on a busy weekend. Like, okay, if family's in town and we're doing stuff, by like 2 o'clock, I'm like, okay, it's time to go home and take a nap. Just for some quiet, for some rest. And to be fair, yesterday I didn't feel good all day long and I was like falling asleep at my desk. But most of the time I don't have time. Like today, I probably would have loved a nap when I got home because today is my Friday and I don't care about my sleep schedule. But I was like, well, Katie will be here within an hour. It's not worth trying to nap. Mm-mm. Anyways, Thornton knew the value of a good nap. So he is napping and he wakes up to find that his throat has been cut. Like badly enough that he's going to die from it, but like he's not immediately dead. And he can't talk, but he was able to write down, quote, "I dreamt that I had done it. I awoke to find it true." And then 80 minutes later, he was dead.
How do we know it was 80 minutes?
80 minutes from the time he woke up. Oh, because there were other people. There were people like in his house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like his family was there. So his death was ruled suicide while temporarily insane. And the idea is that he cut his own throat while he was sleeping. So there is something called, I'm going to say this wrong, automatism?
Mm-hmm. I know what you're trying to say.
Okay. I was like, the first way I said it? So it's basically performing an act or actions without awareness or conscious volition. So it can be a symptom of things like schizophrenia or Tourette's or epilepsy or narcolepsy, but it can also just happen during REM sleep.
I was about to say, I'm like, well, I've done that before. I've definitely not slit my throat in my dreams.
Yeah.
I woke myself up one night because I was dreaming of I was driving a stick shift. And so I woke myself up because my arm was moving
really
the shifter and my leg was pressing the clutch.
Wow. You do complicated things in your sleep.
I'm a very busy, multi-talented person.
It's true. And if you napped more, you could still probably get all those things done. Just while you're sleeping. Well, fun fact, homicidal sleepwalking has been used as a legal defense as early as 1846 and as late as 2008, which is essentially the defense of, well, this person was sleepwalking when they murdered someone, therefore it isn't their fault, which
I mean, if the person has like a long documented history of sleepwalking, like there's that woman online that has a compilation of
I was
hilarious
just thinking about her.
hilarious sleepwalking videos. And so, yeah, they've got a camera in their, or multiple cameras, I think, in their house. And, you know, it's
she
not.
Just gets out of bed
and
starts walking around.
It's so funny to watch. Like, she is.
I want to know
in
what her dreams are
world.
So bad.
In her own world. And, like, she's picking things up, moving things around, and then also she's, like, at the same time, she's also miming things. Like, at one point, I think she had, like, a mannequin's head with a wig, and, like, she straight up styled the wig. Not well, because she was asleep, but she did it.
My favorite is when
But then she, like, pretended that she was holding a pot and was stirring it.
My favorite's when she, like, leans over her husband and yells something in his face.
And she also has, like, a weird, I don't think she actually has any kind of Tourette's or anything like that, but she has, like, a sleep Tourette's almost.
Yeah.
Where she flips the bird a lot, like, puts up the middle fingers, and just kind of, like, twitches them up all the time.
I mean, like, she's the one putting them, like, on TikTok or whatever.
Yes.
So, like,
she has a sense of humor about it.
She has a sense of humor.
She also thinks it's hilarious and ridiculous.
I hope that it is not, like, causing her to not get, like, I mean, I'm sure she's not getting the most restful night's sleep, but I hope it's not, like, impacting her life too much, because it is so funny.
Yeah.
And I don't want her to be harmed from it, because it's delightful to watch.
Well, so yeah, like, if you've got a documented history of sleepwalking like that is hella documented.
Yeah.
If she did murder someone in her sleep, I would be like, no, acquitted.
She was sleeping. It's fine.
She didn't do it.
Please see these 72 TikTok videos as evidence. Oh my gosh. Well, that is death by sleep.
Should be death by napping.
Death by... Okay, fine. Well, I'll amend it. Death by napping. Okay. So now we're in 1927. And this one, I wish I could have gone into more of this biography. Because you might know this person. Isadora Duncan. The name sounds familiar, right?
It sounds really familiar.
Okay. So she was... Did I write it down? I want to say she was the known as, like, the mother of modern dance.
Okay.
And fun fact, I actually don't... Well, I'll get into it first. So she's born in 1877 in San Francisco. She was raised by her mother her parents separated, and her mother raised her to have a great appreciation for the arts. And she began dancing and also teaching dancing at a young age. She would just, like, hold dance classes for, like, neighborhood children. She studied Greek mythology and visual iconography in Europe. And she, quote, came to look at ancient rituals around dance, nature, and the body as being central to her performance ideology. So she would wear, like, flowy clothes, and she was very inspired by Renaissance paintings and Greek imagery. And if you have ever looked at my family wall in the hallway, there's a picture of my grandma, Skippy. Apparently when she was 15, which my dad just told me, I thought she was, like, early 20s, in this picture. But I texted him to ask, like, do you know anything about her dancing? Because I didn't know anything about it until everyone in the family got this beautiful picture. And she's wearing these very flowy, like, kind of Greek or Roman looking whatever. And she's in this beautiful, just, like, and it's 1923 or whatever, whatever. So it's very much could have been inspired by that. Maybe I'll post a picture if you need an idea of what, or I could just post a picture of Isadora Duncan. But that's my connection to her. So that was kind of her style. It was very new. She danced in the homes of the financially elite. And she became very, very successful by 1902. This is when she becomes known as the mother of modern dance, and her dancing emphasized the female form and free-flowing movements.
Cool.
We love that. She was also an early feminist, defiantly had 2 children out of wedlock. She was just like...
Well, I mean, she was raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
So she's like, my mom did it and did just fine. I don't need no man.
Yeah. She was like, I want kids, but I don't want a husband.
I
love it for her.
I always... when I was, growing up and well into my early adulthood, I was like, I, fully anticipate and, would be totally fine with adopting kids. Like, I never thought marriage was in the cards for me.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't want to, like, get married and have kids. No, I wanted to adopt
now you're married and have a kid.
I wanted to adopt kids. But I was totally down for, like, if I find someone who makes me want to be married, then yeah, we'll do that. But, like, I don't need a husband in order to adopt children.
And see, I'm not the opposite, but the reason I want kids is, like, because of the person I want to have them with. I'm like, I don't want ones that are just me. I mean, like, obviously they wouldn't be just me, but, like, I want a kid that's me and Jarek. Maybe 60% me. And
well, I mean, biologically speaking, your kid will be at least 50%, 52% you.
That is true. Fingers crossed. Okay, so she has her 2 kids, no husband. She founds several dancing schools. Her pupils are called Easadorables. Which I love so much. I think I told you about my friends who have a little boy named Theodore. Which he might go by Teddy, but the hashtag they would use for him all the time was Theodorable. I love it.
So cute.
Okay, so she's very successful. However, she was plagued by a lot of tragedy in her life. I just realized I lied to you again. Both of her children were killed in a car accident in 1913. I'm so sorry. She also did end up getting married, but her husband died by suicide in the mid-1920s.
Yeesh.
So she did not have she was very successful, and did what she loved, but also just had one of those tragic lives.
Well, her pain probably fueled a lot of her dance. So.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So in 1927, while riding in an open-air car in Nice, France, she was also wearing a long scarf. And it got caught in the back wheels and apparently pulled her from the car and broke her neck.
Yeesh.
And that's how she died. So. Ooh.
Death by scarf.
Death by scarf. And I feel like this is not this actual story, but I feel like it was almost like and maybe I'm thinking of scary stories to tell in the dark, but I feel like there had to have been some kind of like urban legend or something that we all heard as kids about.
Well, there was the one where, don't take the ribbon off around my neck.
Yeah.
And, one night while she's asleep, her husband unties the silk ribbon and her head falls off.
Yeah. I also feel like maybe I'm thinking of a Hey Arnold episode, because I know there's one of those with like kind of a headless horseman theme. Mm-hmm. And one of the things was someone wearing a long scarf and like riding a horse, and the scarf gets caught, and I don't think it cuts their head off, but it maybe hangs them or something.
It's a little dark for Hey Arnold.
I know. Very dark. Well, anyways, luckily long scarves are not. Well, I don't know. I was going to say they're not in fashion anymore, but they were in fashion in like the early 2000s, so maybe they are. And I just don't know about
Fashion is cyclical.
And stupid right now. I hate it. Mm-hmm. All right, we're skipping to 1951. Mary Reeser. This is another one that I almost did a full episode on her, and I just couldn't find enough about it. So here we are. Mary was a 67-year-old widowed woman of St. Petersburg, Florida. She had moved to Florida from Pennsylvania several years prior to this, after her husband had passed away, because her only son, Richard, and his 2 children lived there, and she wanted to be around them. She enjoyed needlepoint, same. Entertaining, not same. And also and then spending time with her family, which I think is same for both of us.
So I'm 3 for 3.
And I'm 2 for 3. Well, I agree with her on this point. She was not a fan of the Florida heat. She didn't love that part of Florida. I think she liked living in Florida because it was close to her son and grandkids.
Well, she probably also, as she got older, the cold was probably getting to be a little too much, and shoveling snow off the sidewalk or making sure that things weren't too icy for her to, that she wouldn't slip and fall. Like,
Yeah.
those are just concerns as you get older.
True.
So she a concern for me now.
Meanwhile, the summer is a concern for me. So, on July 2nd of 1951, Richard, her son, had been visiting her at her apartment. He left around 9 p.m., and Mary put on her nightgown and took a few sleeping pills, which was normal for her. And she sat down to have a cigarette before bed. The following morning, her landlady stopped by her apartment to give her a telegram that had come for her. And she noticed that the door handle was unusually warm. And kids, what do you do if the door handle is warm?
You grab it as hard as you can and turn it and don't let go. No.
Well, you don't open the door. So this landlady had heard the PSA from Smokey the Bear and called the police. And this is an apartment building, mind you. So the police...
Were fire alarms not a thing in the 50s?
I guess not.
Or smoke detectors, I guess.
Yeah. So police and I guess firefighters show up. And they go inside. And the apartment is not on fire, but clearly a fire happened.
Is this the urban legend of spontaneous combustion?
Yes, it is. Except this is a true story.
Yep.
So
I know that there are instances I've heard this one, or
it is
I think
so wild. I have a theory about it. So they come inside and they find a pile of ashes on the floor. The tops of cannot be clear enough. Her whole apartment, most of her apartment is fine. But in this one section, there's a pile of ashes. The tops of the walls are smoke stained. There are light switches that are warped, but the lower half of the walls are fine. There's a newspaper sitting somewhere in the apartment that's totally fine. The sheets on her bed were still completely white. Like, just this one section. So among the ashes, they find Mary's remains, which included part of her backbone, her foot that still had a slipper on, her skull, which allegedly had shrunken down for some reason.
Heat.
And then also coils from the chair where she had been sitting. So, several things are confusing about this.
I mean, so I feel like we've talked about this before. We never got an answer on it, though. Like, the temperature required to, like, fully
cremate a body.
Fully cremate human remains is extraordinarily high.
Yes. Like, you can't build a bonfire in your backyard and completely burn a body.
No. And, I mean, you also can't basically build a bonfire in the middle of the living room.
Right.
Without, at least heat damaging. Like, yeah, you said some of the light switches were warped or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Like, this would have to be a fire that burns, like, supernova hot.
Yeah.
And super fast. Like, it needs to just...
Like, flat,
very concentrated, like a flash burn. Like it's really, really hot. And then we're done.
Well, and even, like, cremations take...
A long time.
Yeah. And, like, and I don't know, like, I don't know if she was just in, like, an isolated part of the building or if she had upstairs neighbors or whatever, but, like, no one reported anything like, there wasn't an upstairs neighbor that was like, my floor is very warm.
Right. Because if any other neighbors would feel it, it would be there, too.
Yeah, like, it's wild that it happened and no one noticed anything. So that was, like, that's the big thing. Is, like, how are you getting a fire that hot just in this place at all? Like, how are you doing it? There wasn't any evidence that there was like a lightning strike. They couldn't find any like flammable, like anything that would be an accelerant.
I think one of the stories was someone was a smoker, but I think they also had an oxygen tank or something in the house, and like I think there was a leak, and that's how it happened. I don't remember.
Yeah. So there
probably do a whole episode on stories of spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, it's very interesting. There was an anthropologist from the University of Pennsylvania named Wilton Krogman. According to him, he said that it was strange that her skull had gotten smaller because, for whatever reason, he said it should have expanded and like exploded. I don't know anything about science, so.
I mean, so like, yeah, because heat normally does expand things, but I think also it can, because sometimes the heat, but also the dryness. It's like, have you ever dehydrated anything? No, I'm the one with the dehydrator. So as it's heated and dried, the moisture, is leached out and, escapes. And therefore the thing gets smaller, whatever it is. If it's, a slice of an apple, you start out here and then it turns into a smaller shriveled version of itself because all the moisture in all of its cells is gone, and that moisture was helping hold the cells keep their shape. Yeah. And they're all just shriveled now.
That makes more sense than than saying that it should have exploded.
I mean, he would think explode because it would expand. Explode is a bad word.
I know. It doesn't sound good.
I mean, no, it's just a bad word for explain, because your skull actually is several different pieces. That
we have a model over there on the thing if you need.
Yeah, I can almost grab it. That, when you're little, the soft spots are basically your skull bones.
Is there more than one soft spot? Yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, I mean, there's the danger button.
Okay. Danger button.
But their skulls are all pretty soft. But they like on every skull, plastic or real, whatever that you've ever seen, they've got the squiggly lines there, and it's basically sutures of where your skull has fused together as it's supposed to.
It's like tectonic plates.
Pretty much, yes. Okay. It's an excellent comparison there.
Thank you.
It's been a long time since I've been in a medical class, though, so any other medical professionals that are screaming at me of a better way of explaining this, I apologize. Yeah. But yes, your skull is multiple pieces that have been fused together, since you were a child.
Since shortly after infanthood.
But, like, I don't know how, like, strong or weak those sutures are. So, like, I don't know if it would necessarily explode. Right. But it might be that if it's heated and it does start to expand, it would more likely crack and break and fracture at those sutures. Right. So.
Okay. Well, eventually the FBI was called in to assist with this investigation because...
You send all your WTFs there.
Yeah. I think her son actually contacted the FBI and was like, can you help figure out what happened?
Got a real mystery for you.
Yeah.
Like, the local police aren't going to fight you for jurisdiction on this one.
Where did I say she was from?
Thus was the dawn of Florida woman.
Oh my gosh, I know. St. Petersburg.
Weird things happening in Florida started.
And I forgot, like, partway through this that it was 1951. I was like, oh yeah, like, this would be hard to figure out even with, like, 2024 forensics, I feel like. But 1951, like, all they had was fingerprints, and then just the ones in St. Petersburg. They didn't, like, no one else's. So the most plausible explanation that the FBI could come up with was that she had fallen asleep and dropped her cigarette because she was smoking a cigarette. And her nightgown had been made of rayon. And so they're like, wow, that's pretty flammable. If she dropped the cigarette, that could have caught fire. And apparently human fat could act as a fuel and keep the fire burning.
Yeah, like glycerin. I mean, anyone who's seen Fight Club, I mean, obviously we're not supposed to talk about it, but using the fat to turn into soap and use it as glycerin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you can make an emergency candle out of, like, by sticking a wick in a can of Crisco.
I think I did know that. And I will say, poor Mary, because the stupid, maybe it wasn't an article, but several things that I saw were like, and she was 5'5" and weighed 195 pounds, and so clearly her fat kept the fire. And like, I know it wasn't meant
5'5" and 190 pounds. That is not.
I know. Well, and I don't know if that was the exact thing, but like, I'm sure that it wasn't like probably necessarily meant to sound the way that it did. But had I been her child, I would have been like, can you rephrase this? Can you just say that like every human body has fat in it and that can keep a fire burn? Like, she wasn't. And I saw one picture of her and like, good grief, that's not the first thing you would say about this woman if you were describing her.
Also, I'm imagining like old lady fat, for lack of a better
she was
way. Like,
what'd I say, 67?
Yeah, so like
she was the size I would expect a 67-year-old woman in 1951 to be, like, unless you're going to describe her as like very skinny,
which that was my grandmother. And I've noticed it more with dogs. But I've always noticed that dogs, when they get old, they either get like real thin, like sickly thin, or real fat.
Aww.
And my old dog Sugar, she went with sickly thin, and I think Jory's trying to do fat. He's trying.
Aww. Yes. I love little pudgy dogs.
But yeah, no, my grandmother was, rail thin. Like, part of it was the dementia. She wouldn't remember to eat.
Yeah.
But she just always, I think that's part of it's just genetics too.
Yeah.
And then, like I noticed it, when I was in my mid-20s that my metabolism is like a weird like step down. Like my metabolism was here, and then just it seemed like overnight it just dropped down, and I just gained 10 pounds out of nowhere that I couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
And then, pregnancy, childbirth, that threw on a few more pounds.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just naturally women, they get older, they put on some more weight.
But the media feels like they can comment on it because they're women. Yeah. And also women, I think, naturally have or retain more fat than men do. Well, so
women all have an extra layer of fat too. And I remember learning that from like a standardized test. So
I remember
it was part of a reading comprehension thing that women have an extra layer of fat, and that's why the women were the pearl divers.
Ooh.
Because they could handle the cold water temperatures better than the sissy men.
On that exotic island where those two guys were stranded in that movie we watched. Sorry. Really vague throwback to movie night. Weren't they pearl divers on that island? The one that was like kind of racist.
Yeah.
And those two, and the brothers, and the one was a murderer or something. Yeah. Pearl divers. That's also why we're entrusted with carrying and making the children. Yep. Our bodies are more secure. Yeah. Okay. So this theory, I guess, maybe works. I don't think it explains the extreme temperatures. Like, it could maybe explain how a fire like burned for several hours. I don't think it explains the extreme temperature that you would need. There is a very popular theory that she spontaneously combusted. Spontaneous human combustion technically isn't a thing scientifically, because you have to have, in almost every case, you have to have an external ignition source.
Yeah, no, spontaneous combustion's not a... It doesn't... Things just don't catch on fire or don't explode.
It's not like those fun lights in the swamps we were talking about several episodes ago.
Swamp gas.
Swamp gas. So this is what I think happened, because this was one explanation. And it's common in a lot of cases where they thought spontaneous human combustion could be a thing. In a lot of those cases, the victims were elderly. So possibly she could have died from like a natural cause or died in her sleep. And because of that, dropped the cigarette that she had been smoking and then caught on fire. And that at least would explain why it was localized. Like why it wasn't... Because you would think if you were asleep and you suddenly caught on fire that you would wake up and move around or try to put the fire out.
Yeah.
But she very clearly just sat there and burned.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think she was already dead, that she just, you know, had a heart attack or a stroke or something and died. And then unfortunately this thing happened to her body that still doesn't explain
How
everything.
Yeah, like how did it... Yeah, how did it burn down and break down so much?
Yeah.
Without...
It's... I don't like that science can't fully explain it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's death by unofficially spontaneous combustion. Okay. 1984. We got to jump a little bit. The rest of the 50s was uneventful. 50s, 60s, 70s. Nothing happened.
Yeah, nothing noteworthy, at
Nothing
least.
that I felt...
I mean, definitely no conflicts, no cultural
very peaceful
shifts.
Yeah. Nothing.
Everyone was given peace a chance.
Yes, exactly. Okay, 1984, we have Reginald Tucker. He was a 29-year-old trial lawyer in Chicago, and he worked on the 39th floor of the Prudential Building. He had graduated from Yale and also the University of Michigan Law School. He was described as like just very smart, very brilliant, you know, like that person in class that you know is going to go be a lawyer in Chicago.
With a car phone.
With a car phone.
The size of a phone book.
But he did have a car phone. So, during a 4th of July office party, he and a colleague were having a friendly argument.
Several of these have happened in July. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Because it was July for Florida, and it was July for the hair comb.
Yeah. Well, just be on alert.
Yeah, July's not a good time.
It is when my birthday is, though, so one good thing happened. And it is also the month I get my
I
yard.
always think your birthday's in June.
Because everyone else's birthday is in June. The triplets and Stephanie and Hannah Cox and my sister and my nephew.
Oh, Stephanie, your mother-in-law. I thought you were talking about Stephanie Kelly. I was like, no, she's July.
No, her birthday is tomorrow. Because her and Hannah Cox have the same birthday.
And so does Kara.
Oh, happy birthday, Kara.
Yeah.
Fun.
You gotta send her message.
Okay, so they're having a friendly argument about the Olympics, because I guess it was a Olympic year. And they decided to settle their argument with a race down the hallway. I don't know if there was drinking at this party. It's 1984. I don't know if
it was probably blow. They were definitely snorting some cocaine. If they're gonna have a race, like, I bet I could race you to the end of the hall.
I mean, but also,
come on.
The Parch brothers have done shit like that.
This is also 1980s Chicago with lawyers and people with money to blow.
Well, I don't want to
pun intended
speculate on this man. Anyways, they go up to their 39th floor and they're going to run down this hallway that is like marble floored hallway.
Oh. Uh-oh.
So Reginald takes off his glasses and also his shoes. And sprinted down the hallway. It's about 40 yards. And he was, according to coworkers, virtually blind without his glasses. So he got to the end of the hall and just didn't stop running. And he ran through a full-length plate glass window and fell 600 feet to his death.
Yeah, that's about the ending I was anticipating.
Yeah. That's death by poor eyesight. There was a similar one. I don't know when it was, but there was a guy who was demonstrating these windows were like shatterproof. And he demonstrated by throwing himself against the window to prove that it wouldn't shatter. And it didn't shatter, but the whole thing popped out of its thing, and he fell to his death also.
I thought, especially when she said he took his shoes off on the
marble floor.
I thought that maybe, since they were having a holiday party and like no one was on this floor, the janitors had like waxed the marble floor, and he was going to take off running and then slip and slide and fall out the window.
Yeah.
Basically, I knew the window thing was coming. I
did mention the 39th floor a few times. So
I'm picking up on your context clues.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see if you pick up on this next one. 1996, Mark Gleason. And this one, listen, hit close to home for me because 26-year-old Mark was a snorer. Had a real bad snoring problem. So he lived in Headley Down, Hampshire, so England, with his girlfriend, Tracy Lambert. And to Mark's credit, his snoring problem had developed after a car accident that had caused some damage to his sinuses. So it wasn't like...
deviated his septum.
Yeah, like he had like a medical condition. He had recently gone to a doctor, and the doctor was like, there's not a lot we can do for this. Sorry. And let me tell you, I feel Tracy's pain on this. It is hard to sleep next to someone who is a snorer. Even if they are the husband of the year who will come home and kill water bugs for you. It is rough. So on January 23rd of 1996, Mark and Tracy came up with the idea. And by the way, the implications that I got from the context clues were that his snoring was so loud that it was like you could hear it if you weren't in the room with him.
I was about to say, the simple fix is sleep in a different room.
Yeah. Because he was already apparently sleeping on the couch, and they still were like, we have to do something because when you're sleeping on the couch, we can all hear you snoring. So him and Tracy together came up with the idea of putting tampons up his nose to stop the snoring, and so that the whole house could get some rest. So on this night, they both had some wine. Mark took a few sleeping pills. And then put 2 tampons up his nose and went to sleep on the couch. And the following morning, Tracy found him deceased. His death was ruled accidental asphyxiation, and they did say it wasn't just the tampons, also the sleeping pills. But I guess having your nose plugged up is not great.
I mean, especially if it's, the snoring is caused by, some sort of physical, damage that, yeah.
And I wonder, too, because, like, some of the, like, solutions for snoring are, like, things that keep your mouth closed, like, either chin straps or, like, tape over your mouth. And I'm like, I get the idea behind that, but also, like, isn't that kind of dangerous? Like, if your nose can become stopped up very easily... would it not be dangerous to have your mouth, like, taped shut during the night?
I saw one, recently advertised, a tape that, like, has a slit in it or whatever that, your body has, like, the specific reflexes of if it can't breathe, it tries to breathe.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think if your mouth or your jaw jerked enough, it would, like, rip it open to prevent you from basically having your mouth taped shut.
Yeah.
Or maybe it had, like, a breathable mesh or whatever, so it kept it mostly closed.
But you could kind of...
But, you had... I don't know. Basically, like, an air hole.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, Jarek, just know I'd rather have you alive and snoring than not.
Well, there's also isn't there like sleeping sitting up thing or turning them to their side or whatever. And again,
yeah, I make him sleep on his side.
Yeah, and again, like that's like just normal snoring, not
Yeah.
you have like a physical, I don't want to say deformity, but because
he might have a deviated septum. I don't know. He doesn't have sleep apnea, is all we know,
which is good.
Is great. I'm skeptical of that answer, but but okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shelton's dad and sister both have to have the the breathing machine at night, and I think his brother's okay, I think, but there have been times, I think Shelton's fine, but there have been times, and it's mostly usually when he's like sick or something and congested, that I have woken up because I've heard him do the like the jolt breath of like, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to breathe. And every time it freaks me out, and I just lay there and I listen for a long time, and I listen to make sure that he's like, okay, he's breathing at a steady, normal pace. I can go back to sleep now. And it's usually about that time that Walker starts crying.
Oh, God.
It's like, oh, guys, please let me sleep.
Oh, man. Listening to people sleep is such a good use of time.
That's why I have to multitask when I sleep. That's why when I'm sleeping, I need to be driving the stick shift.
You're also driving a stick shift. I love
Through
that.
A snowstorm. I didn't mention that.
Oh, gosh, what a terrible car to have.
And also, it was like a half-open thing. So you know how, like, cars in movies, the cars, like, when you're filming actors who are inside vehicles, the cars themselves are, like, kind of cut in half so the camera can be filming inside the car without an obstruction. It was like that. So, like, the whole sidewall was missing.
It's a dream car. It's fine. I've had dreams where the car...
And I was watching myself driving. And it was one of those, like... I was doing the driving, but I was also kind of watching myself. It was like a weird out-of-body dream thing. I don't know. Fun. My brain does weird stuff.
You should keep a dream journal.
I had a dream the other night that I've been meaning to tell you because I think you would enjoy. I got kidnapped. Not once, but twice.
By who?
Billy Crystal.
Why? What did you do to Billy Crystal?
I think in the dream...
He thought you were real rich and could get a good ransom for you.
It wasn't quite that. It was more, I think he was like playing poker with my dad or something and some other guys. And then my dad ended up owing him some money.
He's like, I'm taking this as collateral.
I don't remember the premise behind it. But also it's Billy Crystal as he is now, which is what, my dad's age, I think.
I'll look him up.
And so when I say I was kidnapped twice, it was he attempted to kidnap me the first time, but I was able to get away. And like, I don't know, like outsmart, outmaneuver, whatever, got away. And then he came back and tried to kidnap me again. And this time I had to like physically fight him off, which again, how old is he now?
I was looking at pictures. Let's see. He is 76.
Yeah. So he's basically my dad. Yeah, he and my dad are almost the same age. So yeah, like I was having to fight off a 76-year-old man. And I mean, I was like, yeah, I was doing it.
I was doing it.
I was getting away, but he was putting up he was really trying. And of course, because it's Billy Crystal, he's talking the whole time, and like he's doing a bit too.
Didn't he do the voice of
Mike Wazowski?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yes. And
oh my gosh.
I'm thinking that might be part of where it came from. I mean, honestly, my preference is Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was because, especially when we're at the cabin, Walker is obsessed with Monsters, Inc.
Okay. Love.
When we're at there, he's like, watch Momo, watch Momo, watch Momo, watch Monsters, Inc. So in the last, this past year, in all of 2024, I have watched a lot of Monsters, Inc. And that's just at the cabin.
Oh my gosh. Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. They're staying at the La Venta Club Apartments in Costa Sol. Did I say it wrong? Costa de Sol Rest. It's in Spain. Katie, what's it called? Costa del Sol?
That sounds right to me.
Costa de Sol.
Sol.
Okay. Sol.
Sun.
The coast of the sun. They were staying at this resort, the La Venta Club Apartments. Okay, so they're vacationing there, and a friend reported them missing. So presumably after a few days of not being able to contact them. So police enter their studio apartment and found both women trapped in the Murphy bed.
Nice.
That had partially collapsed. So what had happened was, so
I'm very excited about this one.
Okay, so a Murphy bed, if you don't know, is a bed that comes out of the wall. But there's like a frame in the wall. Mm-hmm. And what had happened is that had collapsed on top of them. Very unfortunately, it did not kill them immediately.
Mm-hmm. They probably suffocated.
They suffocated, and there was evidence that they had tried to free themselves. Very tragic.
So, have you ever finagled with a Murphy bed?
No, and I'm never going to now.
I've actually slept on one.
Oh, gosh.
So, it's my friend Sarah's bachelorette party in Savannah, Georgia. Mm-hmm. We all pitched in to rent this big, beach house. Uh-huh. And the downstairs area, we had like 4 Murphy beds, like twin-size Murphy beds. Okay. But, it was like the kids' area.
Yeah.
So, like, there was the pool table and the big TV with the video game things. Like, the kids could all go down, like the teen center almost. Mm-hmm. And while the parents stayed upstairs and drank and ate food. And so I ended up on one of the Murphy beds, and a little twin bed. And when you pull it out, it's basically spring loaded.
Right.
So, the bed is vertical, and you have to pull down, and like you have to, when it gets close, you have to really push it down to more or less like lock those springs into place.
Yeah.
And then once it's time to fold up the bed and you push it hard to unlock those springs, it's like, yep, I want to close. And it just more or less closes up on its own. So it closes.
They've always reminded me of pull-out couches.
In a little bit.
They're folding beds.
Fun sidebar.
Okay.
In the computer game, The Sims, Murphy beds exist, and they are one of the deaths in the game. So your Sims can die by Murphy bed.
And so can you.
Yes. I think that death exists in The Sims because it's a real death in real life.
I will say they think that possibly what caused it, not to like disparage the good name of Murphy and his beds, they think that when they pulled it down, they didn't put the legs down or all the way down. So when they were sleeping on it, there was weight that wasn't being supported because that part's meant to come down and then rest on legs.
Yes.
So this was just
normally I think you grab the legs and use the legs to pull. Anyway.
But it was already, just having it down was already kind of putting a strain on the frame that was in the wall. Mm-hmm. And then they were both sleeping on it. And so it just,
the frame that was attached to the wall
just detached. And then,
And then the Murphy bed did its thing where it snapped shut. And
yes.
And how old were these?
They were in their 60s.
Yeah. They probably did not have the strength. And also, like,
if you don't know how to do it, like,
And the physics too of you're trying to like push something open. You don't want to be pushing at the hinge. You want to be pushing at the edge.
It's like when you're trying to get one of those
torque or whatever. Is that the word I want? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a
I'm better at practical application of physics than.
I'm just thinking of like tables, like folding tables, when you have to get those legs out or fold them back in, and you kind of have to like hit the spring or the whatever I don't even know what to call it. I set up a lot of tables these days.
The locking arm.
Yeah, you gotta kind of knock it to get it to shut, and it is counterintuitive how you do it because you whatever. Okay.
Well, also, again, with a folding table leg, like once you've popped that little lock or whatever, when you close up the legs or when you open them, you pull them basically at the feet, far away from the hinge.
Yeah, that's true.
You pull there to open and push there to close.
Yeah.
You don't push or pull right there at its joint.
Yeah. But if it gets stuck, hinge. You do have to kind of kick the hinge sometimes.
I'm talking about the arm itself, not the...
Oh, yeah.
Not the locking bit.
I'm just saying, sometimes I get stuck and you gotta kick it.
I know, but that's a different part.
Okay.
Of the bed.
I'm visualizing
the
incorrectly.
Table. Let's get a folding table in here right now, and we're gonna point. We're gonna make a diagram. All right.
I'm gonna do like we did when I made you explain to me with your body how that person was stuck in the chimney. Yeah, because I couldn't visualize it. Okay, so we are gonna skip to the last one.
That was
Death by Murphy Bed.
Okay, I mean I knew it was, but we had to name it.
Yes. So I'm skipping. I'm gonna. One of these is very short. We're gonna skip 3. Do you want me to tell you what those 3 would have been, or no?
Yeah. So anyone listening can, if they're curious, they can go look it up.
Yes. So we've got death by chewing gum, death by slug, death by swan.
Not at all surprising.
Tracks. The very short one I want to mention as a PSA. These are all PSAs. 2016.
Everyone should already know don't f*** with swans.
Well, yeah, truly. They can and will kill you. In 2016, a 17-year-old named Julio Macias Gonzalez died from a blood clot that was caused by a hickey on his neck. And, like, it's exactly what you think. Is he had I don't know if it was really bad, but he had a hickey, and it caused a blood clot that went to his brain. According to medical professionals, it is extremely rare for this to happen, but it was not the only time it was not the first time it had happened. In 2010, a woman in New Zealand suffered a non-fatal stroke due to a hickey. So,
hickeys are not cool.
They're pretty tacky.
Yeah.
I mean, like, whatever, love however you want to love, but be careful because... Especially in the neck area. That's very close to your brain.
Go more for the collarbones. They're easier to hide.
That's true.
You're not right at the carotid artery.
Easy to hide. Okay. We're going to end with 2019. This is an unknown man. So our John Doe. He's a 54-year-old man from Massachusetts, and he was admitted to the hospital after suffering a cardiac event. And this one's very interesting, and y'all, I don't know if anyone reads my source notes or sources, but, like, this one, I read, like, a whole freaking medical report on this guy, if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Per that report, quote, he had a poor diet consisting primarily of several packages of candy daily. 3 weeks earlier, he had switched the type of candy he was eating. Katie, you're a scientist. Do you want to guess what kind of candy he had switched to eating 3 weeks prior? Mind you, he ate a bag and a half of this kind of candy every day. A bag and a half.
I mean, I need more info than
He had a cardiac event.
He had a heart attack.
Do you want me to tell? Okay, I'll give you more information then see if you can guess.
Okay.
So 32 hours after arriving at the hospital, he passed away, I believe, from renal failure. And a primary cause of this was, or I don't know if, he had a very, very low level of potassium in his body. Does that help?
I mean, he had diabetes too, right?
Probably. I would be shocked
Like
if he did not. But this is not related to diabetes.
Okay, no, it's just the candy, low potassium.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a hint. This, in my opinion, is a gross candy. I cannot imagine eating a bag and a half of it once ever, much less for 3 weeks. Black licorice.
I would never have guessed that.
Well, now you know. Black licorice can be dangerous. It contains something called glyceric acid.
Called what now?
It contains a specific acid.
I mean, I can see your notes.
Red
There's
highlighted. It's the red underlined one.
Yeah. Are you sure you spelled that one right?
Nope, not sure at all.
Yeah.
Anyways, it interferes with the body's ability to retain potassium.
I would say glyceric or something.
Sure. I can always click on the article and find out. It can also cause headaches, fatigue, high blood pressure, heart attacks. I think it caused the heart attack, and then also his body was not retaining potassium at all.
What did he switch from?
They don't say. They just said he was eating a bunch of candy. Yeah, well, apparently licorice, it's weird. Guys, look up licorice. Like, just look up licorice health benefits and dangers.
Glyceric acid.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was right. The
The
American version.
Glyceric acid.
Okay.
Glyceric.
Apparently it can be good for, like, it can be good in small doses.
So I was about to say, now that we're talking about it, I feel like I had heard, not necessarily this story, but that black licorice has both, like, you know, because licorice comes from, like, the licorice root or whatever, and it is used in, like, herbal medicine and whatnot, and, like, it does have some, you know, properties that help with certain things, like, you know, there's certain herbs or whatever that can help with lowering blood pressure.
Yeah.
You know, like, or, you know, like, there's certain teas that when you're pregnant you can't drink for that reason or for other similar things that, you know, yeah. So, yes, licorice I've heard that can be, you know, helpful in a way, but also too much of anything is a bad thing.
Yes, exactly. I also just can't imagine I hate licorice. I, like, can't stand the taste of it. Cannot imagine. I can't imagine.
And that's
eating
one of those things you either
candy.
love or you hate. It's a very polarizing, and I am, I'm, like, staunchly on the it's gross side, but, like, it doesn't evoke the same ire in me. Like, if I pick out a jelly bean, I'm like, oh, it's licorice. Blah.
Yeah.
That's the extent of my anger, my hate towards black licorice. Other people are like, this thing should cease to exist.
Yeah. Also, fun fact that I just learned from the article I clicked on, many licorice products sold in the United States don't contain actual licorice. They contain...
Yeah, that's not at all surprising.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. But
I think you have to buy, like, the old-fashioned brands and whatnot, or, like, get from, like, the old-timey candy store.
Ooh, okay.
To get actual licorice root in your licorice.
This is that today licorice root is promoted as a dietary supplement for conditions such as digestive problems, menopausal symptoms, cough, and bacterial and viral infections. There's also a thing called licorice gargles or lozenges for sore throats.
Well, also,
and sometimes for topical use.
I've had tea that has had licorice in it
Uh-huh.
that doesn't, it's had other things in there too that have kind of either complemented or overtaken the licorice flavor.
Okay.
So, like, there's some, like, licorice root teas that are also supposed to be good for you. Basically, you know, like, anyone who's into herbal medicine, you know, could probably tell us more about it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to avoid it just to be safe. I'm also going to be avoiding Murphy beds, tampons up my nose, not wearing my glasses, spontaneously combusting, long scarves. I won't be avoiding naps. Kisses by random people, metal combs, baseball games, and tortoises.
So, you know how I mentioned that one of those was a death in The Sims? I was going back through the list and being like, okay, what are some other deaths in The Sims? So we skipped death by swan. Now, there's no swans in The Sims. However, there are both chickens and rabbits that you can have a bad enough relationship with, or I mean, there's also just straight up evil chickens. Like literally,
All chickens are evil.
They're black chickens with like glowing red eyes. Anywho, there's chickens and rabbits that can kill you.
Wow.
And
do the rabbits have?
Do you want to guess of all the other deaths that we mentioned?
Ooh.
Which one is closest to a death that exists in The Sims?
Okay. One that we went into, not one of the ones we skipped.
Right, one that we went into.
Okay. We already said Murphy beds, right?
Yep, and that one's in The Sims.
Okay. Is it spontaneous combustion?
I mean, you can die by fire, but it's not... I mean, it's usually a Sim is cooking something at the grill.
Oh, okay.
And they catch on fire, or they light a fireplace and catch on fire.
Okay. What was my other one? I was also going to guess poor eyesight. No?
Nope. I mean, even though your Sims can wear glasses, if you're controlling their lives, you don't really need to see.
Scarf? My gosh. Kisses? You can type of kisses in The Sims?
So, when your Sims become elders, and they're nearing the end of their lifespan, if they, you know, maybe do some physical activity, like maybe they go out for a little jog or something, and so then they get exhausted. But if they're already exhausted, and then they decide to woohoo with their partner, you can die. It's death by woohoo.
Oh, wow.
And anyone...
That happened on the Golden Girls.
Yeah, so anyone who is A, not familiar with The Sims, or B, really not getting the context clues here, woohoo is the T for teen, because that's the Sims rating, word for sex.
Yes.
So you get old and you sex your Sim to death.
Sex yourself to death. Wow.
So it's really funny. They have a great woohoo and then get out of the bed and they're like, they collapse to the floor, and then the Grim Reaper shows up. And their partner is like, oops.
The partner says, this is an episode of the Golden Girls that I can relate to now.
Or their partner says, all right, checked another one off the list because there is a fun challenge called the Black Widow Challenge.
Ooh.
Basically, you have a female Sim and you marry various men and then like
kill them?
Move in with them so that you've got their house and their funds.
I'm starting
and then you kill them.
I was going to say, it sounds really bad for me to say. I'm starting to see the appeal of The Sims.
If you want to see pictures from tonight's episode, go look them up yourself because Hannah didn't have any for me.
I didn't provide any. Sorry.
Just kidding. She might, between now and the time the episode airs, she might find a picture and put it on our Facebook and Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast.
I'll post a picture of my grandma.
There we go. And if you want to see that picture but don't do social media, check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. If you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, check out our Redbubble store. Just search The Tales We Tell. We've got several different logos, and you can put that shit on anything. If you want to support us and don't need the stuff, except, I don't know, early access, commercial-free listening, sometimes some fun bonus content, special stickers, love notes, etc., our undying love and affection, become patrons at patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell. And another super fast, easy, free way to support us is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search The Tales We Tell podcast. Just hit that like, subscribe button, whatever it is. And that little thing goes a long way to helping others find us and just helping spread our reach and make us more successful. So.
And make sure you listen next week for our very fun and special live episode, which if you're listening like before 7:30 today, send us some good vibes, because I remember how nervous I got before our last live show.
Yeah, but we crushed it last time.
And I was just
so we can do it again.
I was looking at our picture from it, and I don't know what I'm gonna wear.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing right now. Is like
we'll have to discuss.
I've got the babysitter lined up. I just
all
I have to worry about is my wardrobe.
I think it's gonna be a fun, on theme, no spoilers, episode.
Okay.
And if you're local, obviously, and again, if it's before 7:30 on the 26th. Come down to Pinky's Pub and see us, because we'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you. And until next time, bye-bye.